Welcome everyone to a new episode on Hyperbolic Orbits podcast. Today we have someone as a guest whose career is both inspirational and aspirational. We have with us today Gaurav Seth, who is the co-founder and CEO of PierSight Space, which is an Indian space tech startup that focuses on developing specialized synthetic aperture radar systems for persistent Earth observation. He graduated from the Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, IIST, and he then worked at the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, for 9 years, where he played a critical role in the design and execution of various interplanetary and Earth observation missions. Thanks a lot, Gaurav, for joining us today. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to the podcast, Sumana.
Thank you. We'd like to begin by understanding your education path and your career before you started PierSight.
Yeah, sure. So, I was born and brought up in Ahmedabad, did my complete schooling here. Interestingly, my family background was also around space. So, my mother works at ISRO Ahmedabad, more in the admin side though. She's a deputy director of official language. And my father is a physics professor at Gujarat University, but he did his PhD on atmospheric studies of Mars at PRL Ahmedabad. So you can imagine I grew up around a lot of scientists from ISRO and naturally was inspired there. And then after my class 12th, we got admission into the Indian Institute of Space Science Technology in a branch called Physical Sciences. It's equivalent to the engineering physics course currently available at various IITs. I joined IIST, was there for 4 years, did my BTech, and post that joined SAC Ahmedabad as a scientist.
It's wonderful to know. And then how did PierSight come into being and what are you currently doing at PierSight?
Yeah. So PierSight as an idea, so I joined, just for context, I joined SAC in 2014 and, then was working there mainly on planetary science missions, something I was very, very passionate about. Initially, DFSAR payload, which has gone on the Chandrayaan 2 orbiter, post that on proposals for, SAR payloads on a Venus mission as well as a Mars mission. And I was really very happy where I was, right? I had no plans of thinking about PierSight or startup. Or to be honest, like when I joined, startups were there in the space sector. In 2014, maybe a couple of them, and they started gaining traction, I think more around 2018-19. But in 2014, if you asked me that, people are building these things privately, I would say they're out of their minds. This is not something which should be done privately. But then, with the new space kicking in, thanks to SpaceX and all the other innovations, I realized this is possible, right? And mainly the change happened because of COVID. So I was very passionate about the Venus mission, which ISRO was building and was supercharged at building that. But due to COVID, Venus changed in the priority of budgets. And also a launch opportunity to Venus is not very often. So if we miss one opportunity, you have to wait several years. So due to COVID, we missed that first opportunity and I was kind of heartbroken. And at that point, also was about 8-9 years into my career. So that was a time when I started thinking about, okay, now this mission, what I was solely focused on is moved ahead for the next 10 years. What else can I do? I looked at job opportunities in Europe, in US, but mainly in the field I work in radars. There's a huge amount of restriction which countries have due to import regulations. So I couldn't do that. And then in midst of COVID, the privatization of space happened, right? That is how, it struck that, okay, ye bhi to kar sakte hain. And my co-founder, Vineet, that time he was at National Instruments, and I still remember us having that conversation. So the National Instruments and SAC, we collaborate a lot together for, test measurement and prototyping. And that's how, we started having these weekend sessions of brainstorming of ideation, like, what could be done in the space sector. And then finally in 2023, things could get more concrete, and that's how we started PierSight. Now, on the second part of your question, what we do at PierSight, so we build application-specific synthetic aperture radar satellites. The first application we are focusing on is maritime domain awareness. So oceans, which are 70% of the Earth, and if the entire ocean was a country, it would have been world's seventh largest economy. So, huge amount of economic activity happens over the oceans, but we have very, very limited visibility over it. And that is something we feel our application-specific design can really solve for.
That's great to know. Maritime surveillance using satellites is a challenging thing to do.
Yeah.
And SAR, you have worked with radars, so SAR has kind of revolutionized technology in a lot of ways. So I would like to know from you, for people who are studying right now, maybe just thinking of jumping into the space sector, could you explain the SAR technology to us?
Yeah. So SAR, in a very first layman definition, is camera with, you can say like a flashlight in space, right? So what this flashlight does is you can image during the night time, right? As you can do with a flashlight. And also this flashlight happens to be in the microwave part of the spectrum. So because of the longer waves of the microwaves, they don't get scattered by fog or by cloud, and hence it is a pass through for microwaves, right? So what it essentially gives you is all weather day and night imaging capabilities. So that is SAR for a very layman understanding. Microwave camera in space, which can image during the day, during the night, through the clouds. Now, getting a little bit more technical there, you can think of it as a radar. Radar, as many of us know, is object or a system which can detect ranges of objects, right? What it stands for, radio detection and ranging. But if you want to make this imaging system to generate photos, like how our cameras take, SAR essentially utilizes the motion of the sensor against the target. So it is radar plus signal processing, a lot of signal processing along with radar, to form images, not just know the ranges and directions of target, but also make geometrical understanding of them. Yeah.
And to build this system, of course, you have to collaborate with the already established organizations in this, but having to build this technology and make it commercially viable. So, what has been your strategy and understanding, and then what kind of challenges are you facing in that? Just development of the technology.
Yeah, so number one for radars or SARs, it's a very critical technology. So you need to build the complete transmit section, receive section, antennas. So antennas, for context, is like a lens. What a lens is for optical camera. Similarly, antenna is the equivalent for a SAR. And on top of that, there is a huge amount of data involved here, which you need to store, process, downlink, right? So it is very, very critical to build this technology. However, we've been able to do a good job since starting the company. Within 6 months, we could finish a prototype which we launched on the Poem platform, and also we've been able to prove this technology on a drone-based system, right? Of course, there is an advantage that an ecosystem exists which has been supporting ISRO and SAC for a very long time. But a lot of critical things we had to create from scratch, only from the knowledge and understanding we have. So, for example, about 30, to be honest, about 30 to 40% of our team is from ISRO, ex-ISRO people. So they do have that knowledge and background of building these systems. However, the complete IP has been created from scratch. And
Fantastic.
also would like to highlight, we're not only building the SAR payload, but we are also building the satellite bus around it in-house.
And is it like a constellation that you're building? What kind of?
Yes, yes. So now to, previously I was talking about SARs transmit their own light. So, there's a bunch of advantages of it. But transmitting your own light also has cons. Number one, you run out of battery. Number two, the light you transmit is generating heat. So you have to find ways to dissipate that. So essentially what happens is that any SAR which is there in the market or in space can only operate for a very small amount of duty cycle in orbit, right? Let's say for a 90-minute orbit, the small SAR systems usually operate for 10 to 15 seconds because they're focusing on a very high resolution, right? While PierSight system is different, it is tailor-made for maritime domain awareness. So it can do a very long imaging cycle compared to any other SAR in the same form factor. And we're planning about 32 satellites in this constellation. Yeah.
And do you have already finalized the form factor for this? Is it,
Yeah, we have. So there are two form factors actually, but currently the first one which we're launching next year would be 100 kg in size and about half plate volume. Half plate is a SpaceX jargon, which SpaceX allows. They usually sell a volumetric weight, so it's 100 kg within the half plate volume. Yeah.
It's very nice to know. And then you are developing the payload, you're developing the constellation, and the entire mission design, the operation side of it. How does a private company manage that?
So, from ground station point of view, ground station as a service is now a very, extensively available thing. And people from, Amazon to KSAT to Leaf Space, Infostellar, bunch of those guys provide it. So you don't need to, worry about it. It's something like, paying a toll each time you pass over it, right? So that's how we do. And in terms of the mission design and operations of the satellite, companies like PierSight, who plan to launch and operate their own constellation, we also do that in house. So what's done is there is a mission control software, and with that you have inputs which go into it for the regions the satellite needs to image. Then you need to point the satellite in that direction, have the complete ConOps of how you downlink the data, etc. And that's how you do it. Yeah.
And now coming to the entrepreneurship side of it,
Yeah.
a lot of young people want to know how do you building the tech is something they still learn at various institutes, but when it comes to building a tech company, it's a you have successfully raised funding, you are building a good team. So from meeting your co-founder Vineet and to incorporating your company, how was the entire process for you?
So incorporating the company, so yeah, it was a very, very interesting journey. Something which really helped us was initially, I mean, Vineet was aware of it, a lot of things, because he was, coming from corporate. I was coming from ISRO. So, first thing for people who are in their 30s or early 30s, if you want to start up something, you should be ready to unlearn a lot of things. Something which I continue to try and also struggle with a lot. Some because your original thought processes or ways of working are difficult to change. But that is something which is very much needed to be, ready to be malleable in this kind of an environment. And something was helped to us particularly was firstly the support from IIM Ahmedabad Ventures. So it is here in the same city as us. They do a fantastic job at incubation, mentoring, hand-holding young entrepreneurs. So that really helped us a lot to get learn from the best here. And post that, right when we started in September 2023, we enrolled or got selected in the Techstars Space Accelerator program. So this program takes place in Los Angeles. They have about 10 odd companies each cohort, and they teach you the best practices of how to start a company and up to reaching a seed round, right? So that was mainly the entrepreneurship part of it, the sources from where I particularly learned. And also, I mean, still learning every single day, right? So if you ask me as an advice, what I would say is that follow your gut feeling. End of the day, that is very much important. And also be ready to change as per the environment, right? As what is something I've realized is that each time your company size doubles, it's a new company altogether, right? When you're four people, it's a different company. 4 to 8 different, 8 to 16 different, 16 to 32 totally different. And initially you want to be very lean, but as you get into the 20s and 30s in number, If you are not having SOPs and processes, you will end up burning out a lot of people. So this is in particular easy said but very difficult to implement, because you have, targets of launches, supply chain is difficult, technology itself is very, very difficult, and then bunch of other business areas you need to handle, and all of that along with constantly changing SOPs within the company. So this kind of a dynamic environment does come with a lot of stress and anxiety, but if your purpose is clear, you will overcome it with an open mind, of course. Yeah.
And what TRL are you at right now? The product you're developing?
So yeah, so with the poem launch, which we call the Varuna mission, we are at a TRL 7 overall. Yeah, because we did an in-orbit demo of most of our subsystems. But of course, if you get into nuances, it'll be slightly here and there for certain components. But overall, we can say we are at a TRL 7. And next year, close to Q2, Q3, we should get to a TRL 9.
Fantastic. And then you coming from a tech background and now you're the CEO. So having to balance the tech side, the business side. And you mentioned something as a founder that a lot of people want to know, that organizational system. Running an organization is not easy. So how are you balancing your work schedule on these different fronts?
I'm not doing a good job at it, to be very honest. Uh, but yeah, I mean, taking on challenges as they come, and particularly the job of a CEO, as people joke, also is a chief everything officer. At different points of time, it's a different role. Sometimes it's about evangelization, sometimes it's about crisis handling, a lot of times it's about constantly selling, despite what's going on in your background. So somehow I feel my role, which was there at ISRO SAC of a systems engineer, was very similar to the role which I'm playing right now. Right. When I say that, even back then, I had to, draft proposals from scratch, look for funding, evangelize those proposals to committees, to, peers within the center itself. And that is pretty much what I do right now as well, along with a lot of added responsibilities. And something I think I'm good at is delegation, which is again very important, right? You need to be at the top of things, but you can't end up doing everything yourself. It's stupid. You will end up, burning yourself out and still do a bad job at it. So maybe because of the lazy nature, uh, I'm in general, I've been good at delegation, and I feel a lot of decisions I take are based on what I feel at the gut, which gives me a lot of speed. But at the same time, a lot of credit to my co-founder, Vineet. He is someone who comes with a lot of structure and past experience of working in operations. So that brings in the right amount of checks and balances, that there is a crazy person with ADHD randomly jumping around things. So there is someone to stall that entire thing in itself, right? So yeah, a very honest answer there. I am not the right person to learn this from, but something I've been able to manage well so far. Yeah, or at least
No,
I
I
think
think
I am.
the honesty is quite appreciated because it's a difficult thing. There's no proper protocol for it for you to follow also. So and now how are you building your team? The reason I started this podcast and everything formally was because most of the students I was teaching, they want to join us. There are plenty of options right now, and the question is, they're somehow not able to bridge the gap between what they're studying or maybe what they're working currently now, and they're getting
Yeah,
overwhelmed. So
yeah.
when you hire for technical positions and also the non-tech positions, what is your system going about that?
You mean what's our hiring process or?
not exactly the process, but what is your strategy behind building the team together? And if someone comes to you saying that, I'm good at electronics, but I don't know how I can help you, how do you manage that?
Okay. So firstly, in terms of building the team, it was fairly challenging, to be honest, right? Because in building a satellite, there are various specializations you need. Like we have about 9 departments internally, which we are still building a couple of those, right? And each of these departments needs to have their own vertical head, right? Just for more context, like, normal people study electronics and some people study power electronics, let's say in their masters. But for space, you need a particular niche of power electronics in itself, right? Same thing is true with embedded design. Same thing is true with, software systems to systems engineering is very, very different. So there's a bunch of, very niche specializations which are needed. And then you also cannot hire a very junior level person till you don't have a vertical head there, right? Because if you see from a funnel point of view, the funnel for a junior position is much higher than compared to the funnel for a senior position, where you want somebody who's ideally done that before, because you don't have many shortcut success, right? It's not that if one thing fails, you have like 5, 6, 7 different opportunities. You may have a couple of 2 to 3 opportunities. So you need to also de-risk while building this team. So this has been one challenge, and something which has really helped us there is this great pool which is available of retired ISRO scientists, right? So we've been able to, and also it's not that you can only have these people come in and do the day-to-day work, because they're not at that juncture of life. um, they do have motivation, but it's a very different state they are in, right? So you need to create this right advisory and execution balance within each of those verticals, and ensure that there are right working protocols as well, because this then becomes a challenge. Somebody who's been at ISRO for a long time, or let's say any senior organization, works as per that organization's DNA, right? While as a private company, you want to be very, very agile. So yeah, that's something you need to be very careful in terms of balancing. For each startup and the kind of technology they are trying to create, it has to be different. And also, one more flavor to add in there is that you also want a corporate kind of way of working for operational excellence, right? So you need to take all of these experience, zeal of a young person, efficiency of a corporate organization, while having the resource challenges of a startup together, and you need to build a team around it. So something what I would recommend to your listeners is, number one, if you are at a junior role, try to be more open, right? Don't fixate your mind, because sometimes I get this from young people that, okay, I want to join in strategy, I want to lead the strategy at your organization, right? And the person is maybe 3 months out of a BTech, and has relatively no idea. And this I'm talking about, this person I'm speaking is from a leading college in India, topmost college with a topmost CGPA. And I was baffled that why are you not interested in your core subject? It's clear you have done demonstrated great thing in it, right? So what I would recommend you is that you spend a few years, and then once you understand things from horizontal and vertical angles, that is when you can really come in and into the strategy side of things. I refuse to understand. I may be totally wrong here also, right? So again, my opinion should be taken with a pinch of salt. I refuse to understand why a fresher would be suitable for strategy. It looks cool, and there are a lot of titles we look at LinkedIn, etc., which attract us towards it. But I think something old-fashioned is good. Working on the area you have studied and specialized is good, and creates a lot of value. So concentrate on that initially, and understand that the startup or the management working for the startup is trying to balance all of the points I tried to say said before, right? So you should be open in terms of being malleable and understanding their thought process and core values there.
I
Sorry, long
couldn't have
answer.
No,
Yeah.
I couldn't have asked for a better answer to this.
Uh,
This is one thing that I've faced myself in startups while working with them, or maybe if I interviewed somewhere. It's that um, I like the enthusiasm. Even at some point, even I was a student at a university, and I know that enthusiasm can be directed properly if you get good guidance.
yeah.
So it's better. I am also old fashioned that way, that I advise everyone to first work some under proper mentors and then go into those kind of roles. So thanks a lot for that.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I would, before I let you go, I would like to ask you that your primary work can be categorized under Earth observation, let's say.
Yep.
And since you are into the building side of things and the space system side, so for someone who would ever like to work as an employee in your company, what kind of skills and set of knowledge would you prefer? You have so many subsystems to work with.
Yeah, I mean, any engineering or we didn't talk about non-tech, right? Of course, a company needs everything, right? End of the day, and a young company like ours, most things would be there. But from a broader point of view, in the previous question, I covered, about being open and trying to, work in the area you understand the best. Something else which we generally look out for is, we try to maintain a very horizontal culture within the organization, right? So people who are open to that. Secondly, people who have agency, right? The stuff you do, and when you work within a team, you should not and you cannot point fingers at each other or refuse to take responsibility. So that's again a very key thing which we look at is person having the agency. And second thing is that uh, our thing particularly, you mentioned we are building satellites. Yeah, for the first one, it'll take about 2 to 3 years to build, and usually any new R&D project we take in takes some time to realize. Right? These are not, unfortunately, not software systems which can quickly be put up again. So we look for people who have a long-term view. Right? We usually it doesn't serve both sides best if somebody who has a short-term outlook. Nothing wrong with it. 1 to 2 years wants to do an MBA, or you wants to use this as a stepping stone into corporate or something. That doesn't suit us or them, because ideally we want people to see the complete cycle of development, because that would only lead to the right amount of growth which we anticipate for the company as well as for the individuals. So these are a few core areas which we try to look at. And anyone, first of all, thinking about PierSight, thank you. Please reach out to us. We are very keen on having the best talent within the country and also be a platform for this best talent. You no longer need to work abroad in other countries in these areas. We want to provide that platform in itself within the country to all the individuals. Yeah.
That's really nice to know. I'll tell you a few points. We hear a lot from the startups here. Uh, there has been a legacy of space in India, and the privatization is fairly recent for startups in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we do hear from founders about the investment side, that we are trying to convince the stakeholders that this is not a 18-month exit plan kind of a environment. But on the other side, I do see a lot of startups struggling to run their companies that are not from that space. So space companies also need to be run in a certain way. Like you said, a
Yeah.
little long term is important. So thanks a lot for sharing that.
Yeah. Also would like to know, because you speak to a lot of these young people, we also need feedback that, what do they expect from environments or, companies like us? Would love to know if you can think of a few things as a feedback. And that this will also maybe go to other startup founders or their managements who are listening to this.
Well, thanks for asking. There is quite a lot on this.
Yeah.
The only major one is clarity during the hiring process. what happens is it's difficult for maybe someone is applying for, let's say, an ADCS role. Maybe they have the skills, but to build a space system and what is required out of the ADCS system, what he may be or she may be doing is one part. And then secondly, some people want to stay in India and work in the startups and go through that long-term phase. Some
Yeah.
people want to gain experience and go for higher studies. So the main feedback that I have got is the hiring process confuses them, and they're not sure what they're getting into. I understand part of it because not all space projects can be given in detail to the candidate, but sometimes the interviews have been without feedback, or the interviews have been I've not particularly found, I don't know anybody who has applied to PierSight ever, so it's not particularly your company.
No, we are also maybe guilty. I'll admit to few of those things because, and not to defend, but just to say our side of things. Sometimes it gets very difficult, and as a small, we also as an organization are a baby, right, a couple of years old. So, but yeah, these feedbacks are good. We understand, and now we've started trying to provide feedback to everyone we can. Yeah. And one thing, something comes out of my heart, which I would like to say here is something very unprofessional, which, I have seen. I don't know if they'll get controversial or something, but this was the first time for me outside ISRO. So a lot of times I saw that, we've given someone an offer. Uh, you can negotiate the offer as much as you want till you accept it. But after accepting the offer, one day before joining, you suddenly send apology note and post. Sometime we were wise enough to understand that okay, this offer is being taken in the market and then negotiated, because there is no legal contract which happens there. So now legally nobody can be held against this, but I feel it's very deeply unethical, right? Imagine from the other side, if a company has given you that offer and you've left opportunities, made your future plans, and one day before they come back to you and say sorry, I mean, we were anticipating some funding but unfortunately couldn't get it, or whatever goddamn reason, and go against it, you will be heartbroken, right? So at the same time, we as a company also, I personally sometimes get really heartbroken that we had such a great conversation with this person, everything was good, he agreed on the complete offer side of things, and now why would they go ahead and negotiate this as a shop around, to be honest, in the market? And that's something which will create a really bad culture, and uh, companies becoming hostile, and even individuals. So this is a young sector. This is something, nobody can hold you to not do it. This is something out of conscience and something we need to create within as a culture, right? That this thing is wrong, right? And if it is called out from within your friends, nobody can hold you legally, or within your circles, both the companies won't be able to do it, neither would it be people applying there, right? So there's something coming out of my heart. I may be not very well informed, or this is a perspective from the person only trying to hire and not the person who's on the other side. But yeah, just something I wanted to mention.
No, this is good thing that you mentioned, because sometimes the feedback goes one directional. And I try to tell the candidates, first, it's not always possible for a company to give you personalized feedback. It's just simply the resources can't be allocated like that. Second, yes, 10 years ago, if somebody wanted to apply to a space company, had two, three maybe options. Now you have so many. So yes, candidates do shop around. So I would like to request every candidate, whatever negotiation you have to do, whatever checks and balances, do it until you sign. Because once you've signed, and I know several people who have done this, that 1 month they've got some other opportunity they were waiting for and they have left. That creates a disbalance on both sides. So it's easier to always blame the startup ecosystem, but we also have got a lot of options that people are shopping on. So
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, as I was talking about that, one of our objectives while hiring is to look at whether the person has a long-term overview or not. And we also maybe, if the person is doing something like this, we also feel we have failed into, looking at that objective. But yeah, it's not cool if you ask me. That's to simply put it around as a person, I would say it's not cool. And let's try to create an environment where something what we want, right? Let's try to create the environment what we want, and this doesn't go in well there. So yeah.
I agree. Thanks a lot, Gaurav. This has been a lovely conversation, just to have talk about the real things. It has been really lovely, and I appreciate you taking the time out and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot. And to everyone watching, I'm going to request you to look at what PierSight is doing. I'll put the link of their website in the description here. Take a look. They're dealing with something which is quite difficult technically and in other areas as well. So the more we support such companies, the better our space ecosystem is going to behave. So thanks a lot, everyone, for watching. And thanks a lot, Gaurav, again.
Thank you.